Hey, I'm JR St. Julien with the St. Julien Real Estate Group of EXP Realty, and I'm here to talk to you about contingencies. If you're thinking about buying a home, you need to understand the contingencies that you can put in place to protect you as you're going through the purchase process. Now, I'm gonna break this video up into 3 series because there's 3 different contingencies that you need to understand. The second contingency that you need to worry about, and this is part 2 of a 3-series video, so if you didn't watch part 1, I recommend you go watch that, and after you watch this one, go ahead and watch part 3. Anyway, the second contingency that you need to be concerned with is the appraisal contingency. And I would say this is a very important contingency as well, especially in the market that we're in today. And the reason for that is that the purpose of the appraisal contingency is really for the lender. It's not for you. It's really for the lender to go ahead and validate the value of the home. And it's really a fraud prevention mechanism. So basically, they just want to make sure, hey, is the home habitable? And is the home worth what you say it's being worth? Bottom line, it's there to be a protection mechanism for the lender. Now, that being said, the appraiser is an independent third party, and they are looking at the same data that I would be looking at if I was trying to evaluate the home. The biggest difference, though, between the appraiser and their evaluation of the market and me and my evaluation of the market is if the market is doing this, the appraiser is always looking behind what's going on. I'm looking at what's the market doing and where is it going to try to get my buyers right here, or as close as possible to here, so they can get their offer accepted. The challenge is if the appraiser is looking back here, there might be a little bit of delta between the two. We've seen this a lot in the 2021 market, and I expect to continue to see it in the 2022 market. And what we're seeing is that homes are being sold for values or amounts that are more than what the home appraises for. So how do we deal with that? Well, if you have an appraisal contingency in place, a traditional, normal appraisal contingency in place, if the home doesn't appraise at the purchase price, that contingency's purpose is to give you the ability to exit the contract and get your earnest money deposit back and not proceed with the purchase. You also have the option to try to negotiate the price down to the appraised value or somewhere in between, or you have the option to proceed with the purchase. So that's the purpose of the appraisal contingency. Now, strategically in this market, how are we using the appraisal contingency to help you as a buyer get your offer accepted? Well, if I'm selling a home as a listing agent and I do my comps and I'm looking at the history, same stuff that the appraiser's looking at, and I come up with a number and I'm like, okay, well, the market's moving here, but let's start with this number and let's price it at this number with the expectation that the market will have moved beyond that number and we should be able to get multiple offers and get a sales price higher than that comped number. Now, the number's just based on market data. So now we set that listing price, which I always tell folks, that's just the advertising price. That's the market price. That's not the sales price. That's the advertising price. And because now that the market is live and what they're looking at is like, hey, this is a good price. That's the same price that that home sold for 2 months ago. I'm going to go after this home because we all know that in 2 months, based on the appreciation rates, the market is anywhere from 4 to 8% higher, depending on which neighborhood you're in, 2 months later. So what typically happens, especially if the listing is done well, it's presented well, it's advertised well, it's marketed well, is you will get multiple offers and sell the home for higher than the listed price. Now, when you're evaluating your offers as a seller, obviously price is important, but if an appraisal contingency is in place, that price suddenly doesn't have as much importance. You now need to look at the combination of the price and the appraisal contingency. What's going on with that? So one thing that many buyers are doing right now in this market, they're waiving their appraisal contingency. They're saying, hey, I don't need that contingency. This is the price that I will pay for that home. And that works because guess what? When that home sells, it sets the new appraised value for that particular neighborhood, that type of home in that condition. So they're fine because they know that the market has been rapidly appreciating and in 2-3 months, they will have equity in their home. But if you're not in a position where you can do that, which means have extra cash available to cover the difference when it doesn't appraise, we have to look at what we can do. So one thing that we can do is offer an appraisal gap coverage. So it's basically just offering saying, hey, in addition to this price that I'm offering, even though I have my appraisal contingency in place, I am willing to cover a gap, which means if the appraisal comes in short, the gap between the appraised value and the purchase price of X amount of dollars. And you can get to that number and do that calculation by working with your team, your lender, and your real estate agent to come up with a number that works for the program that you're been approved for, because obviously every program requires a certain amount of down payment, whether it's 5%, 10%, 20%, whatever that number may be. And your real estate agent who understands the market and what it may take to be competitive for that particular home. It may be a scenario where you don't need to do that at all, but it also may be a scenario where you need to put forward your best foot if you want that home. And that's where the appraisal contingency really plays a major role in helping you secure the deal or not. So that's why it's very important that you understand the ins and outs of the appraisal contingency in your contract when you're purchasing a home. If you have any questions about this, please feel free to reach out. I would love to answer any questions that you may have. Again, I'm JR St. Julien with the St. Julien Real Estate Group of EXP Realty, and I love to talk real estate, so give me a call.